Okay, we are diving into a topic for this explainer that just perfectly captures the wild, kind of paradoxical nature of keeping a marine aquarium. Honestly, if you're looking to understand the fascinating dynamics of reef tanks, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're looking at a creature that embodies just a massive contradiction in the aquatic world. We're talking about the damselfish. They are quite literally the beauty and the beast of the aquarium. I mean, they're stunning, they are absolutely captivating, and yet, they can completely turn your peaceful underwater ecosystem upside down.
So, I gotta start by asking you a fundamental question here. Why do the prettiest fish cause the absolute most chaos? If you have ever seen a damself in person, you know exactly what I mean. They look like living decorations. They dart around the water like these vibrant little jewels, and man, it is so incredibly tempting to just drop a few into a community tank to add a splash of color. But behind that gorgeous exterior hides a really serious, very intense attitude. They aren't just swimming around looking pretty. They are constantly sizing up the tank, making calculations, and basically preparing to claim their space.
It's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation, right? On one hand, you've got these stunning physical traits, sleek bodies, vivid blues, brilliant yellows, striking stripes. I mean, they are the quintessential reef fish. But then you contrast that with their behavior. Many damselfish species are highly territorial. They are persistent defenders of what they deem to be their space and relentless opportunists when resources start running tight. When you put those two sides together, you get a fish that will very quickly turn from an entertaining little splash of color into a highly disruptive force that monopolizes resources and aggressively defends its chosen corner of the tank.
Section 1. The root of aggression. Wild instincts in a glass box.
To really understand why they act this way, we have to look at where they come from. Specifically, we need to talk about the concept of the compact neighborhood. See, we're taking animals with literally millions of years of wild survival instincts and placing them into a contained box. In the open ocean, damfish naturally establish and maintain these small territories, usually around specific shelters or prime feeding grounds. When you put them in an aquarium, the tank mirrors that wild behavior perfectly, but with one massive catch: there are extremely limited escape routes. The tank effectively forces a single damfish to anchor itself to one specific rockwork zone and vigorously defend it all day long. They can't just swim a mile away to find a new reef. They are locked into this compact neighborhood with all their neighbors.
Which means they basically turn into constant boundary guards. Unlike more peaceful species of fish that will just sort of naturally spread out and share the space, a damselfish is always on patrol. They'll constantly chase rivals away from their preferred algae patches. If a slower swimmer just happens to drift by, they'll nip at them. Even if a fish simply passes a little too close to the invisible property line that the damselfish has drawn in its head, they're going to be confronted. It is quite literally a 24/7 security job for these fish. Section 2. Hobbyist nightmares. When aggression takes over.
Now, it's one thing to have a grumpy fish, but it isn't entirely when their natural territorial instincts systematically ruin a community tank. And reports from marine keepers actually cluster around a few highly predictable scenarios. First, if a damselfish is the first addition to a tank, it sets the rules for everyone else who comes after. It just claims the whole tank. Second, new arrivals face immediate, intense intimidation. Third, and I find this fascinating, fish that share similar body shapes or colors to the damselfish become the most likely targets for bullying. And finally, even in a totally well-established tank, simply rearranging the rockwork or adding a new piece of equipment can instantly trigger renewed territorial defense. The drama can restart at any given moment.
There's a quote from the source material that really hits the nail on the head here regarding the hidden cost of all this drama. It says, "Damage is not always physical. Chronic stress can still be harmful." We so often just look for torn fins or bite marks, right? But a lot of these interactions are just chase and displace behaviors. The damselfish darts at another fish, the other fish flees, no one is bitten. But that chronic stress causes timid fish to constantly hide. They lose their vibrant coloration, they stop exploring, and if they do happen to get sick, the recovery time is drastically slower because their immune systems are completely suppressed by constant anxiety. Section 3. Planning a peaceful tank. The solution playbook. Now, I don't want you to think it's all doom and gloom here. Smart planning can absolutely keep your community tank harmonious. Let's walk through this practical 4-step playbook. Step 1. Choose the right species. Some damselfish are notably way more aggressive than others, so you've got to research their specific temperament before buying. Step 2. Build robust rockwork. You need visual barriers so fish can break the line of sight and actually escape direct confrontations. Step 3. Sequence your additions carefully.
If you know a fish is aggressive, add it last. That way it doesn't establish a massive territory before the peaceful fish even arrive. And step 4, spread out your feeding. Make sure food reaches multiple areas of the tank simultaneously so one aggressive fish just can't monopolize the whole feeding time.
But listen, it is not just about the rocks and the feeding schedule. You absolutely have to have active, confident tank mates. If you already have fish that are known to be shy, or maybe they're just slow swimmers, adding a damselfish is a terrible idea. Compatibility is critical here. Damselfish do best in mixed communities where their tank mates are active, confident, and perfectly capable of claiming and holding their own space against a bully. Section 4. Recognizing the red flags. When the balance fails. Because sometimes, even with the best planning, the most robust rockwork, and confident tank mates, nature is unpredictable and things can still go wrong. If you start seeing any of these behaviors, you've got a problem. A tank mate suddenly stops eating regularly, or a fish starts hiding in the rockwork for extended periods instead of swimming freely. Maybe you see visible physical wear and tear from them being constantly chased, or rapid stress changes just from your routine tank maintenance. Now, a few minutes of bickering during feeding time, that's normal. But if this pattern of stress and hiding lasts for days, you don't just have a grumpy fish anymore. You have a systemic issue where the tank's social balance has entirely failed. And this leads us to a pretty tough reality for hobbyists. The do-nothing approach is incredibly risky. Just hoping they'll, work it out usually results in dead or diseased fish because of that chronic stress. When you hit this point, you have to make a tough choice. You might need to physically separate the problem fish. You might actually have to completely redesign your aquascape to break up those established territorial lines. Or in severe cases, you may need to rehome the aggressor entirely. The goal here isn't to punish the fish for its natural behavior, but to prevent chronic stress from becoming the daily rhythm of your entire ecosystem. So I want to leave you with this final and probably most important thought from this explainer. Will your aquarium allow multiple safe zones to exist at once? Before you ever purchase one of these beautiful, demanding fish, you really have to evaluate your tank's structural capability. Do you actually have the space, the rockwork, and the visual barriers to support them? Because if the answer is unclear, you might be setting yourself up for constant chases and the exact kind of underwater drama that no pretty fish should ever have to survive.